You mentioned the name Braden Lindsey, also Kevin Austin. You and others have primed me for their emergence on the Notre Dame scene. Well, Kevin Austin seems to be there. Braden Lindsey, has he found his role? I know he had a big drop in the game on Saturday. It just didn't seem as though, he's quite emerged.
Well, for me, I think there's a usage problem with Braden Lindsey. I mean, pretty much all they've done, and he's been solid. I think the big drop hurt him. If you watch the games live, if you're there like I've been, if you have all 22 film, what you're going to see is a kid that's open a lot. They haven't been able to take the time to get the ball downfield. Jack Cohn has underthrown him a few times. He did that. He missed him twice against Wisconsin on Saturday. The third time they went deep. That was great coverage by the corner. But the first couple times he had a step, and Jack Cohn just missed. He was open twice for potential big plays against Florida State. He was open against Toledo for big plays. They haven't had time. The problem that I say as far as a usage problem, when you go back and look to the last time Braden Lindsey was healthy, was 2019. He kind of came into the lineup, didn't play a ton early, was a little banged up, comes into the lineup against USC. First really big play he made that year was his first touchdown was on a screen pass. His second touchdown was against USC. He ran a reverse, and he outran the USC defense for a 51-yard touchdown. His next touchdown was a 72-yard post route against Navy. His fourth touchdown that year was a 60-yard touchdown on a jet sweep. So 4 touchdowns, 4 completely different ways to use him. Right now, they're just using him to run go routes, post routes, and out cuts. No jet sweeps, no reverses, nothing like that to me is utilizing his skill set the way that it needs to be utilized. He's not a great route runner. He's not a guy that's going to win a bunch of contested throws. You've got to manufacture some ways to get him. There's no screens, no reverses, no jets. I think you do those things to get him going. That's going to then make him even more effective on the vertical routes. I also think those are things. Look, the fact that Braden Lindsey, this is kind of one of my issues, and I think Tommy Rees in a lot of ways is doing a good job. But one of the issues I had on Saturday was Braden Lindsey and Chris Tyree. There are not many teams in the country that have a more dynamic, speed combo than that. And they combined for 5 offensive touches in that game. That's it. And to me, you've got to manufacture. When your offensive line is struggling the way that it is, you've got to manufacture more touches for those kind of kids on swings and screens and jets and reverses. Because what that does, Mark, is it makes the defense say, oh, there goes Chris Tyree on a jet sweep motion. I got to keep my eyes on him. And then if 1 or 2 of those hit, now all of a sudden you're actually running an inside zone, but that backside will linebacker is worried about that jet motion by Braden Lindsey or Chris Tyree. Maybe that's all the room that Kyron Williams needs to get through the hole and to make a play. If you can get teams kind of thinking left-right instead of just constantly downhill, then you can take advantage. And I think Tommy Rees is a real focus and not enough, hey, this is college football. You can do screens, you can do jets, you can do reverses, you can do shovels, things that maybe you can't get away with in the NFL because everybody's got speed. I think if he can incorporate some of that into the offense, it's going to make him a lot more dangerous. It's going to make Braden Lindsey more impactful. It's going to make Chris Tyree more impactful. It's going to take pressure off the offensive line. And now you've got to deal with those 2 guys, plus Kevin Austin, plus Michael Mayer, plus Kyron Williams, and nobody's talking about Avery Davis, who's been their best receiver the last 2 weeks.
Notre Dame a touchdown favorite against Purdue a couple weeks ago, and really good ball game, but they stretched it out at the end by 2 touchdowns. Then I was pretty stunned by the line against Wisconsin as almost a touchdown underdog. I scarfed that one up quickly, and now I see that Cincinnati's a 2.5-point favorite on the road in South Bend. Difficult place to play. That's telling us that Vegas thinks they're like a 5 or 6 point better team than Notre Dame. I'm not getting it.
Last 2 weeks, they've been pretty off on those spreads. And, I mean, this is a Notre Dame team that has not lost a home game. Think about this. The last time they lost a home game was the second game of the 2017 season. They lost by 1 point to Georgia in a game where Georgia scored late to take the lead. Georgia that year happened to, go to the national championship game and take Alabama in overtime. That's the last time Notre Dame lost a game at home. And all of a sudden now they're, despite being undefeated, coming off of a 28-point win over Wisconsin, a game that, let's be honest, outside of about a 5-minute stretch in the late third, early fourth quarter, Notre Dame was the better team in that game. Despite beating Purdue convincingly, now Notre Dame's an underdog to a Cincinnati team that was tied at halftime with Murray State at 7-7. that was trailing, let's be honest, for about half the game at least, got outplayed or played Indiana to a draw. I just don't understand why people are still down on this Notre Dame team. I don't understand it. I don't really get into the betting lines too much because I don't quite understand. I mean, I'm just not a bettor. Although we benefited from that because we had several people give us big super chats this weekend because they're like, "Hey, I made serious money on the Notre Dame game this weekend," so they were happy. But I still don't understand the disrespect. Like when I told you I read the article at SI, well, this isn't one of Brian Kelly's most talented teams. What are you watching? Like, go talk to NFL scouts and you ask them if this is one of Brian Kelly's more talented more talented teams. They're going to tell you a whole different story than what you're hearing right now from the narrative.
Notre Dame Cincinnati should be a great one in South Bend. And of course, Group of Five fans are pulling hard for those Bearcats as they can make a possible splash with the College Football Playoff Selection Committee by beating Notre Dame. But the Irish look to go to 5-0, and it'd be quite an impressive string of wins that they've chalked up already here in 2021. Brian?
Big Ten West champs, right?
Big Ten West champs. Absolutely, they are.
I just like that before the game, you've got the guy from Barstool Sports talking about Notre Dame doesn't play big boy football and they need to join a conference. And then they just went out in Wisconsin, got smacked. And I always enjoy those kind of things.
Well, I would like to see Notre Dame in a conference as well, but that doesn't have anything to do with playing big boy football. I think those things are completely exclusive.
Yeah, Notre Dame plays Clemson and Ohio State next year. Yep, they definitely are trying to avoid teams. They've scheduled Texas A&M, Alabama. Notre Dame wants to play Navy every other week. Okay. Sure.
I will say it and have said it for years. Notre Dame consistently, not every year, of course, they can't predict how teams are going to fare. They consistently play the most difficult schedule in the country.
Right.
Brian, appreciate you stopping by as always. You guys have to, you get a little slice here when Brian joins us here at the Voice of College Football, but you got to join him on Irish Breakdown Podcast, whether that's the audio version, of course, on your favorite platform or right here on YouTube. Brian, always appreciate it and enjoy the game.
Thanks for having me on, Mark.